Hi, it's me, Bob, again. This time I would like to talk about a subject that I've shared uh, with my subscribers, the people that follow me on my website. We've talked about this many times, but I wanted to put it down on a YouTube video in case there's any new subscribers or new people that have just come by and want to check out these new videos. And I wanted to talk about something that, like I said, we've already talked about. Um, Lately in the news, there's a lot of talk recently and, of course, in the past about two-state solution, ceasefire, um, things involving Israel and the Muslims. And I pointed out to my people that when the tribulation period starts, otherwise known as Daniel's 70th week, um, there's not going to be any Muslim influence. And the reason I say that is because when we go into Daniel's 70th week, we are going to, if you will, supernaturally go back to God's dealing with Israel. The clock will start ticking, if you will. When we're in the church age right now, God's time clock is not ticking. It only ticks when God is dealing with Israel directly. And again, when the church started, that clock stopped ticking. Um, but when the rapture takes place, and God starts dealing with Israel again, we're going to go back in time to when God left off with Israel right before the church started. It's a little difficult concept to understand, but if you think of the church as a parenthesis, that parenthesis will collapse, and in a way, it won't come into play anymore. Although, of course, we're part of the church, and it's critically important to us. But when it comes to God's timetable, that parenthesis of the church will sort of disappear, if you will, and God will start the clock ticking where he left off uh, before the church started during the days of Israel. Now, when the tribulation period starts, as I said, God is going to pick up where he left off with Israel. And there were two main players at that time. Of course, Israel was one of them, and the other one was Rome. Okay, so if you remember the Roman Empire at that time. Uh, Now, Israel, as we have also mentioned, according to the Copper Scroll, during the tribulation period, Israel will be in full bloom. They will get their art back. They will get all of the gold and silver back. Uh, God's dealing with Israel will put Israel back as the head of all of the nations, and Israel will be ready to go. They'll have all their temple worship. They'll have everything back to where God sort of wants to start them fresh and at the starting line. So Israel will be ready to go. Now, what about Rome? As of right now, Rome is not ready to go. But that's why we're making these videos, and that's why we're talking about Emmanuel Macron. Emmanuel Macron, in my opinion, will be the Antichrist. It's more than my opinion. He will be the Antichrist, and he will start what Daniel calls the revived Roman Empire. That's why the revived Roman Empire is so important, and that we understand that, because along with Israel during the tribulation period, we need Rome to once again play a big picture in the tribulation period. And so that's why the revived Roman Empire will once again thrive. And we know that Emmanuel Macron will be in charge of that. Now, again, as I said, Israel will be in full bloom. And now we have to think about Rome. If you think about Rome before the church, ask yourself, who was the president of Rome and what was the religion of Rome? And the answer to those two questions are, the president of Rome was the emperor. Okay, he was in charge of Rome. And the religion of the Roman Empire was emperor worship. So we would expect that to continue during the tribulation period if we're going to sort of take up where we left off before the church started with Israel and with Rome. So we'll have Israel, and we'll have Rome, and we'll have the emperor, and we'll have emperor worship. Now, you might be saying, well, Bob, we don't have emperor or emperor worship. And I would beg to differ with you. And I would like to show you a short video clip that might change your mind about Macron and the scenario of emperor and emperor worship. And I will end this video with that clip.
And talking about democracy, here's someone who claims to champion it, French President Emmanuel Macron. This coming year is make or break for him. Two things can happen. One, he ends up as the emperor of Europe, or two, he ends up out of office in France. Truly make or break. His first challenge is in Brussels. On the 1st of January, France will take over the presidency of the European Union. It's a 6-month job, and Emmanuel Macron has big plans. His motto is recovery, power, and belonging. That second one is very interesting, power. The last time Europe chased power, the world suffered. We had colonialism, we had 2 world wars. So how does President Macron define European power? Here's what he said on Thursday.
If
I had to sum up in one sentence the objective of this presidency, which will run from January 1st to June 30th, I would say that we must move from a Europe of cooperation within our borders to a powerful Europe in the world, fully sovereign, free to make its own choices and master of its own destiny. And that is the objective we must pursue.
A master of its own destiny. Is that a message to Washington, D.C.? It could be. Macron has always argued for an assertive Europe, a Europe that thinks for itself instead of blindly following America. Just look at his foreign policy. Macron has refused to boycott the Beijing Winter Olympics. He says it is insignificant and symbolic. And frankly, he's got a point. A diplomatic boycott is a half measure, as we've been saying for days. But it's a start nonetheless. France's closest allies have all joined the boycott. The US, Britain, Australia, Canada and New Zealand. So why is Macron unwilling? I can think of 2 reasons. One, pay back for the AUKUS deal. You betrayed us, so here's a taste of your own medicine. And reason number 2, France is not interested in a Cold War. It doesn't want to pick between China and America. This is just one example of Emmanuel Macron trying to be his own man. I can give you more. Last week, he was in Saudi Arabia, the first major Western leader to visit the kingdom after Jamal Khashoggi's killing. What was he doing in Riyadh? Discussing Lebanon. France and Saudi Arabia have pledged to resolve the crisis in Lebanon. It's one of Macron's pet projects. You may remember some pictures from last year. 2 days after the Beirut port blast, Macron visited the city. He walked through the debris. He met with the people. It was a dress rehearsal for his dream job. Not president of France, but the leader of Europe. His other pet project is Africa. It's a mix of hard power and outreach, you could say. Macron has increased aid. he has returned stolen cultural artifacts. And this year, he sought forgiveness for France's role in the Rwanda genocide. That is the outreach part. He's also deployed 5,000 French troops in Western Africa. Their mission is to eliminate Islamist insurgency. Next year, President Macron plans to expand this relationship. He's proposing a summit between the European Union and the African Union. The plan is quite clear. If Africa is the next geopolitical playground, Macron wants Europe to take the lead. It's a shrewd but problematic plan. Because don't forget, Africa was plundered by European colonialism. So their governments will be wary of Macron's designs. Which brings us to his plans for Europe. What exactly are they? For starters, Emmanuel Macron wants a European army. Listen to what he said in 2017, I'm quoting, "We have to protect ourselves with respect to China, Russia, and even the United States. We will not protect Europeans unless we decide to have a true European army." This sums up Macron's plans. He wants to turn the EU from a bloc into a pseudo-nation state. Its own foreign policy, its own border policy, and its own defense mechanism. The question is, can he do it? You could argue that this is the perfect time. Angela Merkel has stepped down as Germany's chancellor. There's a power vacuum in Europe. If he wants, Macron could fill that vacuum. But his big challenge is domestic politics. You see, France goes to polls in April 2022, bang in the middle of the EU presidency. So Macron will be busy traveling, making speeches. How much time can he devote to Brussels? Plus, will he be re-elected? That's a big question. Right-wing candidates are surging in France. In fact, one survey showed Macron losing this election, and if that happens, his European dream would be dashed. There's no denying that Macron is charting his own path in geopolitics. He's investing in Africa, he's selling weapons and fighter jets in the Gulf, he's wading into the Indo-Pacific, and he's doing most of this against US orders or wishes. Emmanuel Macron wants to put Europe at the center of the world again. The question is, after centuries of war and plunder, after stepping out from a once-in-a-century pandemic, does Europe have the appetite to lead? WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.